Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
He's retired from the Akron, Ohio Police Department. While working narcotics on a raid with SWAT teams present, he got injured. Things don't always go as planned. He's here to talk about that and much more. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. There's a couple ways you can stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Number one, go to our website, letradio.com. Sign up for our email newsletter. It's real easy to find. I promise we don't spam you. I send out about one email every 2 weeks or so. And there's also a feature called broadcast channels on our Facebook page where we send messages directly to your inbox, directly to your messenger. Real easy to sign up for. Make sure you like or follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And up top, you'll see broadcast channels, one for free podcast versions of the radio show, another one top post of the day. So you too can stay informed quickly, easily, and best of all, like always, free. Coming from the great state of Ohio, we have Timothy Dimoff on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. He's a repeat guest. He was on once a long, long time ago. He's retired from the Akron Police Department. And part of his career, he worked in narcotics, which we'll talk about. Planning drug raids, execution drug raids, all that stuff, and how it often does not go as planned. His website now that he's retired is sacsconsulting.com. That's sacsconsulting.com. Timothy, thanks so much for your service, and thanks for being willing to talk about this on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Both very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me on, John Jay.
It's good to have you back. It's been a long time, and you're one of these guys I love talking to because, to be honest with you, you're able to talk about upsetting things in a way it's almost dispassionate. You're not quite testifying in court, but you tell the story nonetheless.
Yeah, that's correct. And the story behind the story is what is interesting and becomes very informative.
It is. And a lot of things, I'm really good. One of the things I tell the cops all the time is, look, tell the story. Don't testify they're going to testify in court. That is boring. No one cares if it's a rainy Tuesday afternoon. No one cares about that. The only time they care is in trial. It doesn't matter here. What really matters is what you went through. And I want to catch people up. When did you start policing and when did you retire?
Well, we go all the way back. I was in college and I had grown up watching the Lone Ranger. For people my age, they know what the Lone Ranger was all about. And he was about, fighting evil. And he was the hero. And I wanted to be the next Lone Ranger. I went to college, and within 6 months out of college, I applied to several police departments, and I got selected on the Akron, Ohio Police Department. And that started my very interesting and engaging police career.
What year was that?
1977.
Oh, you are an old-timer. You're before me.
Yes, sir, I am.
I started in 1980, retired in 1992. Got retired. I'm an old revolver cop. That's how long ago it was.
Wow. Well, we both go back, and law enforcement in that era was very interesting, and a lot of great development, a lot of great cases and stories.
Now, when did you retire?
I retired in 1993, and I stayed on working part-time for some police departments. And before I retired, I also got involved in the federal task force, which added some more interesting experiences.
Well, one of the things that we have in common is I was detailed at the DEA in Baltimore from my police career. I was deputized as U.S. Marshal, and I learned a lot. They had a different set of equipment. That was the main thing. It didn't really affect the way I did my job, but here's the one thing, and we'll talk a little bit about, we try to train for everything. We tried our best to train for everything. We had the academy, which is about 6 months long. We had in-service every year. It was four days of classroom experience, 1 day at the range. We had a daily roll call. We had training up to wazoo. One thing we didn't have training for is something I specialized in, and I think you did too, was narcotics.
Yeah. Well, narcotics back then was more of a street education. It was more about getting out there, mixing up with the people in the street, in the businesses, out there in society, and really preparing yourself to be nothing but extreme set of eyes and ears and listening to what's going on and developing your own story on the street of who you are and what you're doing. And really, being in an undercover, covert position 24/7.
Yeah, the one difference is I was never good at undercover work. I tried it a couple times. I was miserable at it. I always joke and tell people, look, I look like a cop, I act like a cop, and I'm okay with it. I'll be the 85-year-old guy, and the old folks tell me, there's 5-0. It doesn't matter. I'm the knuckle-dragging Neanderthal stereotypical cop.
Yeah. Well, I was quite the opposite. I was the people person, and that's why they recruited me to go to narcotics. I had the ability to blend with everybody, and me being a white male, I got along with lots of people from different cultures, different colors, different ages, genders, and that was a natural for me. And I believe that's what God blessed me with, and it gave me the ability to really reach some very substantial type of achievements working narcotics.
One of the things, and I agree, I was really good at what we call surveillance. I was really good. It was tough to get by me. It really was tough. I was really good at locking up street dealers. I was really good, and I began the migration into what we called special operations, which was not a patrol unit, but you did patrol work if needed. You didn't get calls dispatched to you. That didn't mean you didn't handle them. You did. But then from there, I went to the district narcotics team, and that's when the changes really started to change for me. And that was when I got exposed to DEA and all that. Was your progress pretty much the same? Yeah,
I started out in narcotics with the Akron, Ohio Police Department, and they started me out on, basically getting out, doing some surveillance stuff, and then pushing me to start to get out on the streets, start to mingle at different places where we knew drug dealing took place, and start to warm up. And I started out making small buys,
right.
Small purchases, working on what is my story, who am I on the street, working on how the lingo is, what the pricing is, and then developing it from there and graduating slowly up to bigger and bigger and bigger deals, to the point where I then was working undercover and was the center of major high level, high expensive type of drug deals, all the way up to, starting to purchase $250,000, $500,000, $1 million worth of drugs from stronger or higher connected people, and then started connecting with people that were selling drugs on the street, and they were connected with a whole group of people, and they were bringing drugs in from other states and other locations. So it really escalated over time with experience.
We're going to take a short break on the note. We're talking with Timothy Dimoff. He's retired from the Akron, Ohio Police Department. We're talking about working narcotics. He's a consultant. His website is sacsconsulting.com. That's sacsconsulting.com. You can find us on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. This Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. When we return, we're going to talk about planning and how things don't often go as planned on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't worry, we'll be right back. of all the radio stations in the United States. There are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Return conversation with Timothy Dimoff on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Timothy is retired from the Akron, Ohio Police Department, and he's a repeat guest. He was on the show a long time ago. He is currently a consultant, and his website is sacsconsulting.com. It's sacsconsulting.com. One of the things, there is a big difference for me, working uniform patrol and being, no matter what rank you are, and working narcotics. Did you see that as a big difference for you?
Well, absolutely. It's a big difference. When you're in uniform, driving a cruiser, a marked car, or whatever, you get out, you walk around, you talk to anybody. You're in a uniform, you get instant recognition, and they're either going to recognize you and respect you, or they're going to recognize you and not be happy to see you.
Right.
So when you're in a marked cruiser, a marked uniform, you're already delivering a message before you even open your mouth,
right,
before you even get near anybody. And in many cases, that's an advantage, because it really helps you, and you also, in return, you see those people's reactions, and their reaction tells you what kind of reception, positive or negative, that you're going to get
right
into. So it's a different world. Undercover, you're just another body on the street. You're trying to fit in. You're trying to get information. You're trying to connect. You got to really work hard at your social skills when you're working narcotics.
There's a big difference, and I worked plainclothes. I worked undercover. I didn't do undercover work. I worked plainclothes surveillance, narcotics for a long time. And when I made the sergeant's list, they put me back in patrol in uniform, and it was almost like it was a breath of fresh air. Yeah, you had a target on your back. Everybody knew your police from the moment you walked up and drove up in a marked car. But they didn't know that when you're in plain clothes.
That's exactly right. And in plain clothes, and especially when you start getting into deals, serious drug deals, you have to understand they think you're just another person on the street. So you're much more vulnerable to getting hurt,
right,
to getting killed, to getting shot, to getting beat up, because they just look at you as a nobody important, nobody that's a threat to them, nobody that can do anything to them, because you're the one looking for the drugs. They're the ones that have the drugs. So you're at a disadvantage, and they can take advantage of you in a lot of different ways when you're undercover. The other thing is you're alone. It's not like you're walking in a drug house or a drug deal with 3, 4, 5 other people and backups and all that. Now, just down the street, you have backup. But that moment, one-on-one, during those drug deals, you're all alone.
Right, you are. And by the way, I worked a totally different aspect of police work and narcotics than Tim did. One of the things and I want to go to a conversation we had. We rarely use uniform except when we would need to pull a car over, or when we do a drug raid. Well, say a drug raid, we'd have a search warrant, we'd hit a house. You had to have someone in uniform because you wanted someone you could identify very quickly and easily that they're police. And we were crucially aware that we didn't have that people weren't sure about who we were.
Yeah, and listen, when we do the drug raids, you absolutely want to have SWAT or uniform police there. And the reason is it's not uncommon for people who deal drugs, and they're dealing with large sums of money, for another drug dealer, competitor, another gang to come in and raid your house, raid you, and come in to kill you, come in to hold you up and rob you and get both your drugs and your money that you have, and that. So in order for us as law enforcement, we always on the search warrants and raids would take uniformed police, because the first thing we wanted the people in that house or that location to know is you're being approached by legitimate police,
right,
not rip-offs and gangs.
No, I agree. And here's the thing that I quite often, because I'm a bigger guy, I quite often would use, we did a lot of no-knock warrant, what they call no-knock warrants now. I don't really know of any other kind with narcotics. But I was usually the guy that had a sledgehammer or a maul, and I was usually hitting the door. But here's the one thing that comes to mind. We knew that when things were really, really sketchy, to call SWAT, or what we call a QRT team in Baltimore, to show up and assist us. Didn't mean they always did. However, beyond that, we didn't get a whole lot more training other than hit the door and running screaming.
Yeah. Well, as time went on in narcotics, initially what you're talking about was very true and common. Narcotics people basically went in and took care of business. As time went on and things got more aggressive, more dangerous, that's when you started to plan your raids with police in uniform or SWAT.
Right.
I remember the first year I started narcotics, it was just 3 or 4 of us in narcotics, and we would go to a house with a search warrant, and we'd throw a windbreaker jacket on with the word police on the back of it. That was it. There was no cruisers. There was no SWAT. There was no police. We just did it ourselves. One of us would have a sledgehammer, and we would bust the door.
That's the way it was with us back in the day. And we're running around like lunatics, and it's like you learn as you go. Yeah. Well,
as time went on, it just got more intense, more aggression, more violence, more threats, more guns, and we could no longer just 3 or 4 of us from narcotics go in and take care of a raid. It had to be much more organized, and you had to definitely have uniformed people there.
Was that something that happened later in your career? Was there a defining mark between and usually I'm getting at is usually these things are caused by tragedies elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, what had started happening, other locations in the United States, thank God it did not happen in Akron, Ohio, but other narcotic raids were going on, and police officers were getting shot. They'd arrest the criminals, and the criminals were starting to testify or to claim that, hey, we thought it was a rival gang. We thought it was the enemy, and people were getting hurt needlessly, including police officers. So when those things started to happen, and they started to happen more than, once or twice across the country, all of a sudden, the game plan changed. And the other problem is the liability to the police department for not carrying out the raids in a proper way, where the people in the house that they're breaking the doors down, they're claiming self-defense.
Right. You want them to know, obviously, who they're dealing with. We're talking about Timothy Dimoff, a retired Akron, Ohio Police Department officer. And when we return, and by the way, he's now consulting. His website is sacsconsulting.com. That's sacsconsulting.com. We return, we're going to talk about some drug raids that went, well, let's just say they didn't go as planned. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
There are more than 700 free podcast episodes of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Episodes are converted to a free podcast after airing on radio. You're bound to find a podcast episode that suits you at letradio.com, letradio.com. That's letradio.com.
Return conversation with Timothy Dimoff on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The second appearance for Timothy. He is on a long, long time ago, and he's retired from the Akron, Ohio Police Department. And during his police career, he worked narcotics, which many of us did, myself included. And now he's a consultant. His website is sacsconsulting.com. That's sacsconsulting.com. I got to draw your attention to the raids. So when I say drug raids, we had a search warrant. There's a lot of things that go involved ahead of time, a lot of investigation. But the execution, there was a big difference between the way we executed them, I'd say the early part of my career and the end of my career. Is that safe to say with you?
Absolutely. And, at the beginning, as I said before, it could be 3 or 4 of us from narcotics, and we could go execute, a search warrant and bust a door down with a sledgehammer, go in with guns and make the arrest. But as narcotics became bigger business, and you talk about going from small amounts of money to very large amounts, and you're talking about, a lot more criminals, and you're talking about gangs, and you're talking about illegal immigrants being involved in serious drug. So as the price of gold went up, also the price of threats increased considerably. So we really had to make shifts to the point every time we executed a search warrant, we would always have a SWAT team there with us. And that became the norm. That became the procedure or policy for the Akron police that I worked with and was in charge of narcotics. We weren't going to take any more chances of people getting hurt.
And that's rightfully so. I look back and I sometimes wonder, Tim, how I survived, and I feel the aches and pains. I still have them, trust me. The older I get, the more pronounced they are. But, for example, I remember hitting a door with my shoulder and getting corrected by an old-timer. Use your foot. This is before we had malls. This is in uniform. I'm
right.
Okay, because you damage your shoulder, and it hurts. It hurts then, and it hurts a lot worse now. But we had a thing with the maul or sledgehammer, and I had stuff written on mine, and I went through the door, and the sledgehammer went through, and I got stuck. It was like I'm looking through the door, and the guy's like, right there. And I'm like, I didn't plan for this at all.
Yeah, and as things went on, they came up with better tools. He started out with a small sledgehammer, graduated to a big sledgehammer. Then they came up with a battering ram. Right. And these battering rams, we had a company that handmade them for us, and they put handles on them, and we made a single battering ram and a double, meaning one person could swing it or 2 people could swing the bigger one. And those battering rams, you hit them right above where the locks were on the doors, the door handle, and those doors would go flying open. You could bust through what you want is you want to break the lock apart from the door, and it became sort of an art of, certain people were assigned, and took great pride being the guy who had the battering ram, and he knew how to hit it twice and make any door in the city open, and, became a bragger. But it was important that when you hit a door, you don't want to have to hit it 6 times. Right. You want 1 or 2 times. You need to get in there.
And you had drug raids where you had one particular where you had a great game plan ahead of time. You had SWAT, you had all this other stuff. And let's just say, is it fair to say that things didn't go as planned?
I would say to you, things backfired on us, and we had it well planned out. We had 2 SWAT teams. We were entering both from the front and the back door, and we had plenty of narcotics people there armed, as once again 2 SWAT teams, and we had some individuals in this resident that we didn't want to give them very much time because we knew they had a lot of artillery, a lot of firearms in that house.
And what did you encounter? Was I have my notes that something happened at the door.
Yeah, what happened is I have the SWAT team at the front door with me, and a couple other narcotics guys, and then I had a SWAT team at the back door with a couple narcotics, and their mission was to get the door open and then quickly go in the house. One team was going to go upstairs. One team was going to go to the first level. We knew the layout of the house, and we wanted to cover the house. Our goal in these raids was to cover the house within 15 seconds.
Right.
And we were good at it. And we had done this, 50 times before, and no problem. But this time, on the cube, both front and back door got hit at the same time, and also standing right next to me is a narcotics guy with a percussion grenade, and we would bust the doors open first, throw the percussion in, and the percussions cause flash and loud sound, and what it basically does is it disorients anybody that's in the house, and that gives us that 15 seconds to go and get control of the entire house, which means also control of the people. We're disorienting them. So we give the signal, the both front and back door are banged open by SWAT, and the guy with the percussion grenade, as the door gets hit, he decides that he's going to throw the grenade right after the door opens. We did not know they moved a couch no more than, it couldn't have been 4 feet from the door. And that wasn't because they were barricading. It was just that they moved the furniture around to face the TV. Anyway, when they hit the door, the guy threw the percussion grenade a couple seconds after the door flies open. The door hit the couch and swung back like a slingshot back at us standing at the door. Well, when he threw the percussion in, the door hit the couch, swung back. It took the percussion and threw it right at our feet. And the percussion we knew was going to go off. So everybody at the front door, including myself, we literally dived off the porch, because we knew it was seconds before that percussion went off. Problem being, I dove off first, landed on the steps, which was okay, but two guys that are 250 pounds plus jumped off right after me, and guess who they landed on? They landed on
you. They had a soft cushion.
Yeah. They didn't get injured, but they landed on me. So I'm diving on the step, and not only that, I got a total of 500 pounds plus landing on top of me, and obviously that resulted in some pretty serious injuries.
And I want to. We're almost out of time before we go to break. When we think of getting hurt in police work, we think of the romantic stuff, the getting shot in armed robbery, getting stabbed, the car accident, whatever it might be. We don't think of things like this.
Yeah, no, this is the exception to the exception. I had a total of 11 injuries, during narcotics. That was from hitting the door with a shoulder, kicking it, shoulder, ankle, leg injuries. But, I had 11 injuries. On top of that, I had 167 one-on-one armed confrontation.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a few moments.
Think about it.
That could go. I'm going to take a short break on the note. That could go into a totally different conversation. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We're talking with Timothy Demoff. He's retired from the Akron, Ohio Police Department. He is a contractor. His website is sacsconsulting.com. That's sacsconsulting.com. Don't go anywhere. I promise you. We will be right back. Please stop me if any of this sounds familiar. I'm too old to start investing in stocks. I'm too old to learn about investing. I don't have the time and energy to learn about investing. Suppose an app existed that did everything for you automatically. There is, and I've been using it. Get more details about it at letsavings.com, letsavings.com. That's the letter L, letter E, letter T, savings.com. The information is not personal financial advice, that past performance does not guarantee future results, and that investment involves risk, including the loss of principal. Return to conversation with Timothy Dimoff on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio. Timothy is retired from the Akron, Ohio Police Department, and much of his career was spent in narcotics. He's currently a consultant. His website is sacsconsulting.com. That's sacsconsulting.com. We're talking about drug raids and working narcotics and how things don't often go as planned. And yes, we did put some planning into our raids. In the beginning, it wasn't that way so much. Towards the end, it was for sure. One of the things you said before we went to break is there's two things. That number one, I was in 4 shootings. Back then, we just called them shootings. We didn't call them officer-involved shootings. 4 shootings in a little more than 10 years. And the first 2, I never fired back. I had a lot of close calls. The last 2 were long, drawn-out affairs. But there was a drug raid where a guy tried to take off and go through a fire escape. And it turns out it was me and him, me blocking the fire escape and him, and he was supposed to be a hitman, supposed to murder 7 people. And let's just say the fight was on. And I got a lot of injuries, but I walked away from that fight. And he did too, but he was the one saying, no mas. It was over with.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to work narcotics, you're going to work undercover. You are going to be involved in some armed confrontations and unarmed aggressive confrontations, and you can count on it because it goes with the job.
It does.
And as I said before, I had 167 armed confrontations between my SWAT years and my undercover narcotics years.
And by the way, there's an old saying that police work is a younger man or woman's game. And for a long time, I didn't feel. My mind tells me I'm okay. I can still do this. My body cannot.
Yeah, it is a younger man and woman's game to do the frontline undercover stuff. Just like myself, I went deep undercover for 5 years, and then I came out of that undercover and I took over, one of the narcotic units, and I was able to organize really in-depth big narcotics. I could cases. I could train our younger people. I could direct them. I could be much more valuable in a leadership control way than going and doing undercover buys. So there's a progression there, and it's physical too. 11 injuries. I had a year of rehab. At some point in time, you gotta hand a baton off.
Yes, you do. And it's not an easy transition. One of the things I would love to say, and I'd love to point out, and ask you this in the form of a question. You can answer it or not. It's your choice. But one of the things, especially narcotics, there is an aura that people have. They believe Hollywood, and they believe there's a lot of corruption. I never once saw that.
Yeah, I tell you, I've done tons of investigations. I've worked with lots of different police departments throughout Ohio and outside Ohio. And I will tell you, the level of corruption in law enforcement, I believe it exists, but I believe it is a very small percentage. Yes. And it's not widespread. It's nowhere near widespread. Law enforcement across the country really looks out to make sure that their shop is clean. And I would tell people no profession is 100% clean. You can go right down the list from doctors, lawyers, to, whatever. But you can go to common businesses and they have good and bad employees. But no, law enforcement is a small percentage that deviate. Plus, there's strict procedures when you're talking about like narcotics and police work.
Another thing too is that, and I love this when the conspiracy theorists they love to propagate the stuff that, well, it's the police and they did to protect themselves, and I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, there's an old saying that bikers used to have: 3 people can keep a secret as long as 2 are dead. Not everybody's going to agree to this stuff, and we may look the same, we may seem the same uniform, same dress code, all that stuff, but trust me, a lot of people are going to turn around and say, no, I'm not doing that, and as a matter of fact, I'm not carrying the load alone, and I'm going to tell somebody.
Yeah, and just in my career, I volunteered to take on an investigation that did include a couple uniformed police officers on our department that were involved in tipping off drug dealers and criminals. And I did not hesitate to step forward to spearhead that investigation. And I took it to the point where people thought I was nuts, but I said, we're going to arrest these 2 officers when we're done with this investigation. We're going to arrest them in uniform. And I'm going to personally handcuff them in uniform. And people say, why would you do that? I said, it sends a strong message to the street and to the people in the city and the state that we clean our own shop.
That's
and
right.
It's not acceptable.
It's never been acceptable. It never will be acceptable. I don't know of anybody that tolerates that stuff. And the other thing is in excessive force. Look, people don't tolerate that stuff as well. And I always say this. Back when you have a police officer, you are dependent on your family's dependent on your health insurance, for example. When you get suspended without pay, you lose all that stuff, and your family loses it right away. So we're not going to jeopardize our family to protect someone that's a scumbag.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of deterrence in the job, included in the job. And, today, one of the things I do is I testify as a police procedures expert on a national basis. And I tell people, look, I've testified both for and against police departments, for and against police officers. And the reason I do it is for the integrity of the majority of law enforcement. So we're out there, we're conscious of it, and it's going to continue that way.
So you found a mission to put all this experience that you have into your making a living now.
Absolutely. Right now, we're based in Akron, Ohio. We have the largest ex-military, ex-law enforcement security investigation firm in the Midwest. And people really are attracted to our caliber and level of police, of private security and private investigations, because we bring all that ex-military and ex-law enforcement training and experience to them for their cases, and it's been highly successful, and we've grown from a small to, once again, one of the largest in the Midwest.
I went to your website, sacsconsulting.com, before we did enter. It's sacsconsulting.com. And a lot of people tend to think, and I did this for a little while, the private investigation thing, and I found it to be something I didn't care for. But you guys don't really offer that. You do a lot of other things.
We do a ton. We go in. We're national active shooter experts. We do training on active shooter, diffusing and dealing with difficult people, human resource services. We do security. We do VIP executive protection. We also help law enforcement. We join with them because law enforcement is hurting for personnel. We're working with police departments across America. We're doing human trafficking recovery. We're going in and finding these victims and bringing them back and reuniting them with their families. We're doing internal investigations for corporations, schools, churches, businesses. I mean, I've got a great, trained, mature crew of employees, and we can go out there and do those things that an experienced and trained officer and military person can do, and we're doing it on the private side, and we're making a big impact.
Good for you. SACS Consulting is the website, sacsconsulting.com. Got a quick question for you. We're almost out of time. I posted a flyer for an agency in California that is looking for police officers, and their starting pay is $241,000 a year. What were you making when you started?
Well, it wasn't 241.
No.
It was probably somewhere
so poor,
in the vicinity. About 30,000, yeah.
It was. We started at 13,280 a year, and I lived off ramen noodles. It was a crazy thing. Tim, thanks for your service, and thanks for talking about this on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Both very much appreciated.
Thank you, John Jay, and I appreciate it, and thanks to your audience.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.